My sister pulled my daughter's hair and insulted her. Now I'm engaged to the lawyer who secured justice for my kids. My name is Rachel. A 34-year-old single mom raising two amazing kids, Sophie 8 and Eli 6. For years, I've been the black sheep of my family, while my older sister, Natalia, has always been the golden child. But an incident last month changed everything, delivering a form of justice I never anticipated. Let's rewind to the beginning. Growing up, Natalia, 3 years my senior, was the family's pride. She excelled academically, married her high school sweetheart, Brian, right after graduation, and gave my parents their first grandkids, twins, Ava and Caleb, now 10. Meanwhile, I struggled through college, juggled multiple jobs, and had Sophie and Eli with my ex, Jake, who disappeared when I found out I was pregnant with Eli. My parents, Linda and Richard, never let me forget their disappointment in my life choices. Family gatherings often turned into a showcase of Natalia's successes, with my struggles brushed aside. "Why can't you be more like Natalia?" was their constant refrain. Despite this, I worked tirelessly to provide for my kids, eventually landing a stable job as a medical assistant. The age gap between our children wasn't intentional. Natalia had her twins at 27 after college, while I waited until I was more financially secure, having Sophie at 26 and Eli at 28. Natalia, however, loved to boast that her kids were ahead due to their age, ignoring that a 2-year difference was negligible in the long run. The turning point came during a routine family dinner at my parents' house. We were gathered around their oversized dining table, which Natalia had convinced them to buy for proper family events. My kids were playing quietly in the living room, while Natalia's twins were, as usual, running around noisily. I noticed my dad's new security cameras, installed after a neighborhood break-in a few months earlier. They were mounted in key areas, but I didn't think much of them at the time. My father cleared his throat and announced, "Linda and I have decided to set up college funds for all the grandchildren, $50,000 per child." My heart leaped. That meant $100,000 total for Sophie and Eli, a life-changing sum. For once, it felt like my parents cared about my kids' future. Natalia smiled and said, "That's so generous, Dad." But I could see her calculating something. Then her tone shifted. Setting down her wine glass, she leaned forward with that familiar, manipulative glint. "Actually, Mom, Dad, I've been thinking. Ava and Caleb need extra funds for their advanced programs. Ava's already showing exceptional talent, and Caleb requires specialized tutoring for his learning challenges." I felt a knot in my stomach. Here it comes, I thought. "My kids need the money for their ambitions and maybe a family vacation," she continued, glancing at me dismissively. "Rachel's kids can fend for themselves." The room fell silent. I stared at her, stunned. Did she just call my kids irrelevant and try to take their money? "Excuse me," I said, barely audible. Natalia didn't even look at me. "You heard me, Mom, Dad, you know I'm right. My kids have potential." I couldn't hold back. "Are you seriously asking our parents to take money meant for my kids and give it to yours? You live in a huge suburban house, Natalia. Your husband earns 6 figures. My kids and I are squeezed into a tiny apartment." She rolled her eyes. "That's your problem. Maybe if you'd made better choices, you wouldn't be struggling." "Better choices?" I stood, my chair scraping the floor. "You mean like not having kids with a man who abandoned us, like working 2 jobs to keep them fed, like sacrificing everything for them?" "Exactly," she shot back. "You made your mess, now deal with it." I turned to my parents, expecting them to step in. Instead, they exchanged a look. "Natalia has a point," my mom said softly. "Her kids are gifted and need more resources." My heart sank. "Are you serious?" I asked, tears threatening. "You're actually considering this?" My dad chimed in. "Rachel, let's be practical. Natalia's kids are more likely to make the most of a college education." "My kids are bright," I protested. "Sophie reads above her grade level and Eli's great at math. Just because they're not in your elite programs doesn't mean they're less deserving." Natalia laughed, a cold, mocking sound. "Rachel, stop being so emotional. My kids are going places. Yours, they're sweet, but let's not pretend they're Ivy League material." Her words hit like a slap. I looked around the table, my parents nodding, Natalia smirking, Brian sitting silently as always. "You're all okay with this?" I said, my voice shaking. "These are your grandchildren?" "Of course they are," my mom said in her fake soothing tone. "We're just saying it makes sense to invest more in the kids with the most potential." "So you're saying my kids are failures at 8 and 6? I was nearly shouting now. "Rachel, calm down," my dad said sternly. "You're making a scene." I'm making a scene because I'm defending my kids' right to be treated equally. Natalia stood, her face red with anger. You're just jealous, Rachel. You're trying to steal opportunities from my kids because you can't handle that they're better than yours. Better? I snapped. Your kids are entitled brats who think the world revolves around them. At least mine know the value of hard work and respect. How dare you? Natalia screamed. My kids are perfect. They'll be doctors or lawyers, unlike your little leeches who will probably end up on welfare. That was it. Don't you dare talk about my kids like that, I shouted, stepping toward her. I was ready to defend my children with everything I had, but my dad grabbed my arm. That's enough, he said coldly. You need to leave. Leave, I stared at him. She's the one who— You're being aggressive, my mom interrupted, standing by Natalia. We won't tolerate this in our home. I watched in disbelief as they gathered my things, my purse, jacket, Sophie's backpack. They were actually kicking me out. Mommy, Sophie's small voice broke through, her face confused and scared. Why's everyone yelling? Eli stood behind her, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. Are we going home? Seeing my kids' frightened faces shattered me. They didn't deserve this toxic family drama. Yes, sweetie, I said, trying to stay calm. We're going home, but Natalia wasn't done. She stormed over to Sophie, grabbed her hair, and yanked. This is where trash belongs, she screamed, pulling Sophie toward the door. Get your pathetic kids out of here before I call security. Sophie screamed, and Eli started crying. I rushed to my daughter, but Natalia shoved her hard, making her stumble. Don't touch my kids, I yelled, but my parents just stood there. She's right, my mom said icily. Take your disappointments and go. We're done supporting your failures. My dad nodded. You made your choices, Rachel. Live with them. Holding my sobbing children, tears streaming down my face, I walked to the door. I turned back one last time. You'll regret this, I whispered. I swear you will, Natalia laughed. What are you going to do, Rachel? Sue us? You can't afford a lawyer and everyone knows you're unhinged. I didn't respond. I just took my kids to the car and drove away. As we left, I made a call. Daniel, it's Rachel. I need to talk about something urgent. Daniel was an ex from college, not Jake, but a serious boyfriend before him. We'd stayed in touch, and he'd become a successful corporate lawyer. More importantly, he'd always cared about me and offered help if I ever needed it. Rachel, what's going on? He asked. I need advice about inheritance laws, I said, trying to steady my voice as my kids cried in the back. Specifically, grandparents' rights and family trusts. That's specific, he said. Everything okay? Not really. Can we meet tomorrow? I think I need a lawyer. Of course, Rachel, we'll figure it out. The next day, I sat in Daniel's office and poured out the whole story. He listened quietly, taking notes, his expression growing grim. Before I continue, let me explain why I trusted Daniel. We dated seriously in college, even discussing marriage, but life pulled us apart. He got into Harvard Law while I was struggling with pre-med and working 2 jobs. The distance ended us, but we stayed friends. Daniel had also connected with my family through my cousin Ryan, his law school friend. When my parents needed estate planning, Ryan recommended Daniel. They saw him as Ryan's accomplished colleague, unaware of our past. Daniel specialized in family trusts and estate law, had been married briefly, and always checked in on me, offering support I was too proud to accept, until now. So let me get this straight, Daniel said when I finished. Your parents promised college funds for all the grandkids, but Natalia convinced them to redirect your kids' share to hers. When you protested, they kicked you out and Natalia assaulted Sophie? Exactly, I said. He leaned back, rubbing his temples. Rachel, this is going to sound unbelievable, but hear me out. 6 months ago, your parents came to me to set up a family trust to ensure fair asset distribution for all their grandkids. My heart stopped. What? They created a trust with equal amounts for each grandchild. The college funds they mentioned, those are legally binding, not just promises. Natalia can't take your kids' money, it's in the trust, and I'm the trustee. The room spun. Are you saying they can't change it? Not without my approval, he said, pulling out a thick file. They'd have to prove in court that your kids aren't fit beneficiaries, which is nearly impossible. I remembered something. Daniel, my parents are terrible with legal details. Dad avoids contracts and Mom signs whatever he says. Could they have misunderstood the trust? Very likely, he said. They were focused on tax benefits and protecting their assets. Your mom kept saying she wanted all the grandkids to feel equally loved. The irony was staggering. They'd set up a trust for fairness, then tried to play favorites anyway. So what now? I asked. Your kids get their money, no matter what Natalia wants. But there's more. We can file charges against Natalia for assault and child abuse and a civil suit against your parents for emotional distress and complicity. Hope flickered. Really? Yes, and there's something else. The trust has a clause: if an adult family member harms a beneficiary, their own kids lose their benefits. My jaw dropped. What? When Natalia grabbed Sophie and pushed her, she violated the trust. Ava and Caleb just lost their college funds. I stared, shocked. How? Your parents added that clause at Natalia's urging. She wanted to protect her kids from you, claiming you were unstable. They made it apply to all adults to avoid singling you out. Daniel showed me the trust documents, pointing to Natalia's signature. She insisted on this clause, even saying, "We need to ensure Rachel doesn't hurt my kids." Reading that felt like a gut punch. 6 months earlier, Natalia had painted me as a threat, never imagining she'd be the one to violate the trust. She did this to herself, Daniel said. She demanded harsh penalties for harming kids, then harmed yours. The trust is just enforcing her own rules. I thought of Ava and Caleb, innocent kids caught in their mother's mess. Guilt crept in. They don't deserve this. No, they don't, Daniel agreed. But Natalia made that choice when she assaulted Sophie. She prioritized her anger over her kids' future. He was right, but it still weighed on me. So what's next? I asked. We go to battle, he said, eyes gleaming. We filed charges against Natalia for assault and child abuse, sue your parents for emotional distress, and enforce the trust to the letter. Over the next few days, I had to relive that awful night multiple times for the police, the DA, and Child Protective Services. Each retelling was painful, describing how Natalia yanked Sophie's hair, called her trash, and how my parents did nothing. Sophie had to speak to a child psychologist, which broke my heart. She couldn't understand why her aunt hurt her or why her grandparents were so cruel. Eli, too young to grasp it all, kept asking when we'd see them again. They're in timeout, I told him, which seemed to satisfy him. Explaining to my kids why we'd stopped family dinners was the hardest part. Sophie, perceptive for her age, knew something big had happened. She became clingier, needing constant reassurance I wouldn't leave her. "Mommy, will you get in trouble for what Aunt Natalia did?" she asked one night as I tucked her in. "No, sweetie, Aunt Natalia's in trouble for hurting you. That's not okay." "But Ava and Caleb didn't hurt me," she said. "Why can't I see them?" How do you explain to an 8-year-old that her aunt's actions have ripple effects? The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of legal battles, emotional turmoil, and unexpected hope. Filing charges against Natalia and pursuing a civil suit against my parents felt like stepping into a war zone. But Daniel was relentless. His calm, confident demeanor in the face of my family's chaos was a lifeline. He handled everything with precision, from gathering evidence to preparing court documents, all while checking in on me and the kids to ensure we were coping. The security footage from my parents' house turned out to be a game changer. Daniel subpoenaed the recordings, which clearly showed Natalia grabbing Sophie's hair, yelling insults, and shoving her toward the door. The cameras also captured my parents in action, my mom's cold stare and my dad's silent nod as they watched their granddaughter being hurt. The footage was undeniable, and when the district attorney reviewed it, they moved quickly to press charges against Natalia for assault and child endangerment. Natalia, predictably, didn't take it well. She called me repeatedly, leaving voicemails that ranged from tearful apologies to venomous threats. "Rachel, how could you do this to me?" she sobbed in one message. "You're ruining my kids' lives." In another, her tone shifted to rage. "You're a vindictive loser who's jealous of my success. You'll pay for this." I stopped listening after the first few. Daniel advised me to save every message as evidence of harassment, which only strengthened our case. The civil suit against my parents was trickier. Daniel argued they were complicit in the assault by failing to intervene, and for emotionally abusing me and my kids by siding with Natalia. The trust violation was the centerpiece of the case. Natalia's actions had triggered the clause that stripped Ava and Caleb of their college funds, and my parents' attempt to redirect Sophie and Eli's money was a breach of their fiduciary duty as trust creators. Daniel was meticulous, presenting the trust documents, meeting notes, and even testimony from my cousin Ryan, who confirmed that Natalia had pushed for the punitive clause to target me. The fallout was swift. My parents were served papers, and for the first time I saw cracks in their united front. My mom called, crying, begging me to drop the suit. "Rachel, we didn't mean for things to go this far," she said. "We just wanted what's best for everyone." I laughed bitterly. "Best for everyone? You stood by while Natalia hurt Sophie. You called my kids disappointments. That's not love, Mom." My dad, ever the stoic, sent a single text. "You're tearing this family apart." I didn't respond. They'd made their choice, and now they'd face the consequences. The trust's enforcement was the final blow. Daniel filed a motion to uphold the clause Natalia had violated, ensuring that Ava and Caleb's portions were redistributed according to the trust's fallback provisions. To my shock, the trust stipulated that any forfeited funds be evenly split among the remaining beneficiaries, meaning Sophie and Eli's college funds doubled to $100,000 each. When Daniel told me, I could barely process it. My kids, who'd been dismissed as lesser by their own family, were now set for a brighter future because of Natalia's recklessness. But the victory was bittersweet. Ava and Caleb were innocent, and I couldn't shake the guilt of knowing their college funds were gone. I asked Daniel if there was any way to protect them. He sighed. "Rachel, you're kinder than they deserve. The trust is ironclad, and Natalia knew the rules. She gambled with her kids' future and lost. Still, I couldn't help but wonder if there was a way to soften the blow for the twins. They weren't their mother. The legal proceedings weren't the only thing keeping me busy. Sophie and Eli were struggling. Sophie had nightmares about the incident, waking up crying and asking if Aunt Natalia would hurt her again. I enrolled her in therapy, where she slowly began processing her feelings. Eli, though less aware, became quieter, clinging to his dinosaur toy even more. I tried to shield them from the drama, but kids are perceptive. One evening, as we sat eating pizza, Sophie asked, "Mommy, do Grandma and Grandpa hate us?" My heart broke. "No, sweetie," I said, pulling her close. "They made bad choices, but that's not about you. You and Eli are amazing, and I love you more than anything." She nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. Amid the chaos, Daniel became my rock. He wasn't just a lawyer fighting for us. He was a friend who genuinely cared. Late-night strategy sessions turned into long conversations about life, family, and the dreams we'd once shared in college. He'd bring coffee to our meetings, tease me about my terrible taste in music, and check in on Sophie and Eli, even bringing them small gifts like coloring books or a new stuffed animal for Eli. I started to see the man I'd loved years ago, now older, wiser, and still carrying a spark for me. One evening, after a particularly grueling day in court, we sat in his office, exhausted but hopeful. The judge had ruled in our favor on the trust enforcement, and Natalia's assault charges were moving forward. "You did it, Rachel," Daniel said, smiling. "Your kids are going to be okay." "We did it," I corrected, meeting his eyes. There was a moment, a quiet, electric pause where everything felt possible again. "Rachel," he said softly, "I know this is terrible timing, but I've never stopped caring about you. Seeing you fight for your kids, it's reminded me why I fell for you all those years ago."